So if you're ever wondering why, when you go pick up your car from your mechanic after you've talked to him about your problem, and he tells you it's going to be, $1,000 to fix your rear main on your Corvette because the Corvette is a little bit of a hassle to get to the rear main because you got to take a whole this whole transaxle and a torque tube that's bolted onto the back of the motor. You got to take all that out to get to the rear main. But then you get a phone call from him and he says, "Hey, you know what? It's gonna wind up being a little bit more than what we thought because there is things that are breaking on the way to get to your problem." so you have a problem, you take it to your mechanic. Your mechanic says, "Yeah, that's a problem, and this is what it costs to fix that problem." Well, then you start getting down to the problem, and things like this right here happen. One, two, three, four of the exhaust bolts break. Taking those out, that should have took 30 seconds, if that, to get them off with an impact. Okay, and then that exhaust you took out has this problem right here. Let me get my flash out on there in case you can't see it. It's a cracked on clean through on one side of the exhaust. And then you got this problem back here in the back, right here. This is the nut on the upper control arm ball joint that has seized up on the way out. So now, instead of it being uh, a 10-hour job, it's turned into a 14, 15 hour. It's up to 15 now because it's going to be an hour per bolt probably to deal with each one of these, because a broken bolt, you got to heat them up, you got to put catalyst on them, and you got to try to get them out of there. And if they don't come out and they keep breaking, these pieces keep breaking off of there, then you got to drill them out. It can take a while. And then if you can't do it and you wind up tearing the manifold up to get it out of there, then you're talking about taking the whole manifold out and you got to buy a new manifold. Start over, okay? And then if you're going to do one, why not do them both, right? So then the other thing is other things come up, okay? So he had a rear main leaking in here, and it was leaking up in there. And I don't know if you can see up in here, but it's wet up in here. It was leaking all down through that side and coming down through here. Okay, but then now look what else we find. This whole oil pan is just disgusting. It's leaking profusely in here. Okay, so on this motor, you got to take this whole front subframe out right here. That all has to come out, or not have to come out, but you got to drop it down far enough while you're holding the engine up. You got to put a cradle up there on top of the engine to hold that engine up. So, because this subframe right here holds the motor, and then you got to drop that subframe and leave the engine up in the engine bay of the body, and then so you can get the oil pan off. Okay, well, so that's that's a huge job. And then you also look up here in the front of the motor, and again, you're probably not gonna be able to see a lot of this, but because everything's so tight in these cars, but it's leaking everywhere on the front timing cover. Okay, so that needs to be replaced. And well, also the rubber on his harmonic balancer crank pulley is all coming apart. So that needs to be replaced. So now, instead of it being $1,000 job, and I don't know how much it was supposed to be, but it's a $3,000 or $4,000 job now, because there's more stuff that comes along with trying to get down to the main problem you brought it in for. And it's a 25-year-old car. This is 2001 Corvette. It's been driving around and I don't know where for 25 years. And, it's got rust on it. The exhaust has never been off there. Doesn't look like. And here's another problem right here. That's a 4L60, and 4L60s are got quart gaskets on them on the pan, and it's been leaking profusely. So I told him, well, we'll just go ahead and service your transmission because it's never been serviced. I can tell you that right now, with it being that nasty. So pull the pan out, and there's little to no fluid in there. So I don't know how this thing was driving around. There should be probably at least, a couple, 3 quarts, maybe 4 quarts that come out of that pan, not directly out of the pan, but the pan should be full, and then when you get it down, it should drip out another quart or so. So when I pulled the pan, nothing came out at all. There was a very little bit in that pan. So now who knows how much that's been driven around without enough fluid in there. So that could become a problem. So, all I'm trying to point out is, we all estimate these jobs based on what we call a book time that the dealers, the manufacturers come up with in order to fix things on these cars when they start failing. Okay. And so if you go in and you look up a 2001 Corvette for a rear main seal, the book says 10 hours or 12 hours, with extreme problems. And it turns into 15 because of all the other things that are breaking on the way to get there. So that's why your bill gets higher as you go a lot of times, because there's more things to it. Like if this was a Texas car its whole life, which it wasn't. I don't know where he got this car from, but it wasn't in Texas. It might come apart all correctly, or if it was a California car, it might Nevada, Arizona, dry condition environments, it probably would have came apart just fine and not had any problems. But this one has been in some kind of salt. It looks like there's some spots in here that definitely show that it's not been in a good environment the whole time it's been here. So 25 years of running around in different environments is going to cause problems. And it don't even have to be in bad environment. Some Texas vehicles are hard to tear apart when you have big major things like this going on. So, you got to be a little bit understanding as a customer when you bring your car to your mechanic and say, hey, I've got an oil leak. I don't know where it's coming from. This one was really bad, so you had to address it. It was almost a steady stream coming out of there, so it had to be addressed. So we're going to fix that, and then we're going to fix all those other things, and he's not going to like the bill, but I'm sorry, that's just the way it is.